So this is probably the first ever workflow that I implemented on my client system without even knowing what workflow really means or any of the terminologies that I find myself more and more acquainted with nowadays that I'm working independently building systems for various business needs. You see, I was introduced to Airtable by my client herself, who was already using Airtable to maintain her client data, but she was not really exploiting all the advanced features offered by Airtable. As I started exploring deeper while implementing those features into her already running business, I really got the opportunity to play around and see what all it could do to make our lives easier. One such thing was collecting the body measurements for the fitness coach, who is the business owner in this case, from her clients on a weekly basis. And this was a completely manual process where the clients would just send their body measurements to the fitness coach via WhatsApp. And while you could make it work, I obviously think that this is not a sustainable or efficient method to capture those data. So like I said, I was working with a business to help her, and it was just about that. She needed some help and she reached out to me while I was free at that time. She asked me if I could join a business and offer some assistance for which she would also be able to pay me. So I thought, why not? And apart from that, I was also very happy to join her business because I thought this would be a great opportunity for me to watch closely how she really runs her business. Now coming back to collecting body weekly measurements from the clients to track their progress, I first tried to use Google Forms, and soon I figured that Airtable has its own inbuilt system where you can collect data from external sources just like Google Forms, and why would you need Google Forms anyway? And soon enough, I had created the whole table structure from Google Form to Airtable and created a form link that we could share with the clients to send us their weekly body measurements. By the way, I'm also available for hire if you're looking to organize your data and streamline and automate your processes using Airtable or Notion. Then I'll leave a link in the description below where you can contact me. So let's get into it and see how the whole process got streamlined. Like I mentioned earlier, we were already handling the client and their program data using Airtable. Now we needed a table to capture their body measurements. So I created one with these fields that the coach was going to track the progress for the clients. Then I went to the sidebar on the Airtable to create a form view on this table, which would create this form with all the editable fields within the table. If you don't want some of the fields to be on the form, then you can hide them as well. I also created two additional fields to group the entries by the clients. First one was their client ID, which would have been given to them at the time of their enrollment. Second one was to enter their names just to be sure there is no mistake, because they would make mistakes in entering even their own IDs. It's quite frustrating, but it really happens. Eventually, Airtable came up with a release which would allow one to send pre-filled forms, so this would reduce that kind of error. So I made an arrangement to send each client a personalized link within their onboarding email. This link would already be pre-filled with their client ID and their names. So why name as well? Because again, just to reduce accidental changes to pre-filled fields, but it never really happened to us. At least from here, it was pretty safe. So how do I manage to send each client a personalized link? I use mail merge to create those links from a Google Sheet, which would be filled with client details from Airtable when they are added to the database via automation. I have already explained the process of mail merge and on how to send personalized emails in bulk in another video, the link for which I'll leave it in the description below and also in the card. Mail merge would then use these data columns to fill in the pre-filled URL, which would contain the placeholders to insert these values into the URL, thereby creating a personalized pre-filled URL for each client, which they would receive in their email. By the way, let me just tell you that you don't need mail merge at present to create these personalized emails, and can actually create all these links within Airtable automation as well. But there are two reasons why I still use mail merge, at least for this particular client, for the onboarding emails. The first one is I created these emails because my client was still using a free Airtable account that time, where sending of emails were not allowed from within Airtable with the help of automation. Later on, I'm not sure when this happened, but users could then integrate their own email, Gmail account or Outlook account into Airtable. Using those accounts, they could now automate their emails with the help of the data from Airtable database. Second reason was I wanted to maintain this HTML formatted view for the emails received by the clients onboarding. and within Airtable it cannot be achieved thus far. So if I tell you the process in gist, I created an email template like this which contains some placeholders for client specific data to be filled in by the mail merge. As a new client enters our Airtable database, Airtable automation sends required data for the onboarding email template into this Google Sheet, and then I would use this mail merge add-on to send personalized onboarding email at once to each client. At the client end, they would have received their client ID, their chosen package detail, onboarding kit, and some personalized URLs which would open the forms with pre-filled data to work on. As we started receiving the entries, we needed to view the data grouped by each client. So I created a view grouped by client ID and shared the link to this view to the coach so she could use them to look at each client's progress. While coach could still see her required data grouped by client ID, I still linked those records in the backend to each client program in the program table. The reason was that after all these measurements being submitted to the systems were all relevant to the programs for which the clients had enrolled into. Then after releasing pre-filled forms, Airtable again came up with the hidden pre-filled forms, which opened up another possibility of linking those records with the programs automatically instead of linking them manually later. How? I added another field to pre-filled measurement tracker form containing their program record ID. And set up an automation to match the submitted form's program record ID to pick the relevant program to link up with the measurement record. This then freed me up from having to link the records from backend from time to time, and it became a completely automated process. Let me also mention that I am using a bit of an indirect method to link the measurement records with program, because technically we can send the client pre-filled form linked to the program itself rather than using a text field with record ID, then making it pick up that by the automation to match the record and then connect it. The problem in doing that is the hidden fields are not truly hidden and can be seen on the URLs here. So anybody can just come here and change the URL and stop hiding the field, and if that field happens to be a linked field, then they can just deselect this value and get to see all other entries available in this drop down. Even though there is a rare chance that somebody would be this curious to do this, I still feel it would risk exposing other details to be seen outside of the Airtable database, which we don't want. Last but not the least, Airtable released a beautiful feature called Interface Designer, where you could now build something like a user end layer built on top of your Airtable data, so you don't have to dig into the database to interact with it. My favorite part is that you can mostly control what is editable and what is not editable on the interface. And you can also build a dashboard with some basic charts using the data from the Airtable database, which is what I did with the measurements data collected from our fitness clients. While on the view that I had created for the coach, where she could look at the numbers in a tabular view for each of the client, with the help of this interface designer, I created this dashboard with graphs to give her a better visual experience of the client progress records. Also below this, I can still add a tabular grid of the data just like we had it in the group view before. And that's all about the process and the workflow that I wanted to demonstrate to you today. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below and I'll get back to them as soon as possible. If you want to work with me, you will find the link in the description below. This was Snigdha here. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.